What would drive a queen to carry her husband's corpse across a kingdom for 14 years? Not a folk tale, not a fever dream. A real queen, in black velvet, wandering Spanish roads by candlelight, with a coffin by her side. Her name, Joanna of Castile. History remembers her as Juana la Loca, Joanna the Mad. But was she really insane? Or was madness just the label men slapped on a queen who refused to play by their rules? Before we answer that, let me ask you, would you rather die for love, or live cursed by it? Joanna wasn't born into obscurity. She was born into one of the most powerful bloodlines Europe had ever seen. Her parents, Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile. Yes, the Ferdinand and Isabella who completed the Reconquista, unified Spain, and sent Columbus across the Atlantic in 1492. Joanna grew up in their glittering, dangerous court, a court of priests, generals, and spies, a place where religion burned hotter than fire and politics were as sharp as any blade. She wasn't meant to inherit the crown. She was the spare, smart, quiet, and, to her parents, emotionally intense but manageable. So what do powerful monarchs do with a spare daughter? They marry her off, and in Joanna's case it was a marriage that would define and destroy her life. In 1496, Joanna was shipped north to the cold grey duchy of Burgundy. Her groom, Philip the Handsome, and yes, that was his actual nickname, not Philip the Brave, not Philip the Wise, the Handsome. And to be fair, he lived up to it. Blonde hair, chiselled features, tall, athletic, the Renaissance equivalent of a celebrity heartthrob. When Joanna first laid eyes on him, the attraction was instant. Contemporary accounts described them as so inflamed with passion, they demanded the marriage ceremony be shortened so they could consummate it. So far, so romantic, right? Except Philip's beauty was matched only by his arrogance. Charming in public, cruel in private. The kind of man who could make you feel like the only person in the world, right before disappearing into someone else's bed. And Joanna, intelligent, emotional, and fiercely in love, did not handle betrayal well. Their marriage was a storm. On one hand, passion. They had 6 children in quick succession, one of whom, Charles, would later become Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor, ruler of half of Europe. On the other hand, jealousy, screaming fights, betrayals. Joanna loved Philip with an intensity that bordered on obsession, and Philip, he loved being adored but not chained. Rumours spread of Joanna attacking women she suspected of sleeping with her husband, of her scratching and clawing in jealous rages. But ask yourself, was this madness? Or was this simply a young woman crushed under the weight of betrayal, isolated in a foreign court where everyone whispered in languages not her own? Either way, the passion that bound them would soon become the curse that defined her life. In 1506, the world turned upside down. Philip, just 28 years old, suddenly fell ill. Typhoid fever, some said. Poison, whispered others. Whatever the cause, it struck fast. Within days, the golden-haired duke was dead. Imagine Joanna, 26 years old, 6 children, alone in a hostile court, and the one man she could not stop loving, even through betrayal, lying lifeless before her. Her reaction, she refused to believe it. And here, history takes a turn into the gothic. Most widows wore black and buried their husbands. Joanna wore black, but she would not bury him. Instead, she ordered Philip's coffin to remain with her. At night, she had candles lit so his body was never left in darkness. When the air grew foul, she refused to let priests bury him, insisting he was merely resting. And then, she began to travel. Through the cold roads of Castile, through forests and villages, Joanna moved with her husband's coffin beside her, always at night, always guarded. When locals gathered, hoping to glimpse their queen, they saw something eerie, a young woman in black, pale-faced, hair unkempt, whispering to a coffin as if it could whisper back, "It gets stranger." Joanna forbade women from coming near the coffin, not servants, not nuns, no one. Why? Because she feared that even in death Philip's beauty might tempt them. Let that sink in. She believed her dead husband might seduce women from beyond the grave. On stormy nights she would stop at monasteries. Witnesses describe her opening the coffin, gazing at Philip's corpse, sometimes kissing the casket. Some said she caressed his hair, which still clung to his decaying skull. Was this madness, grief, or a love so consuming it could not tell the difference? But remember, Joanna wasn't just a grieving widow. She was Queen of Castile, and that made her dangerous. Her father, Ferdinand, had returned to rule. He saw his daughter's behaviour and realised it gave him the perfect excuse. If she was mad, she couldn't rule, and if she couldn't rule, he could. Later, her son Charles would do the same. By painting Joanna as insane, both men stripped her of her crown, her power, and her freedom. So here's the question. Was Joanna truly insane? Or was her grief exaggerated and weaponized by men who wanted her throne? The truth may be both, but either way the coffin gave them the proof they needed. For 14 years the coffin remained by her side. 14 years of candlelit vigils. 14 years of whispered prayers to a body that no longer answered. Chroniclers write of her wandering palace corridors barefoot at night, muttering to herself, clutching rosaries. When priests begged her to let Philip rest, she screamed at them, accusing them of envy. The line between devotion and horror blurred completely. Eventually, enough was enough. In 1509, Ferdinand had her confined to the fortress palace of Tordesillas. She would remain there, effectively a prisoner, for almost 50 years. Think about that. 50 years. Longer than most of us will live free. She was allowed few visitors. Guards kept her under constant watch. She never remarried, never escaped, never let go of Philip, even after his body was finally buried. When her father died, when her son Charles became emperor, when the world changed, Joanna remained locked away. They called her Juana la Loca, Joanna the Mad, and when she finally died in 1555, she had spent nearly her entire adult life in captivity. So who was she really? A mad woman who clung to a corpse out of obsession? Or a queen whose grief was twisted into propaganda, her power stolen under the excuse of insanity? Historians still argue, but one thing is certain. Joanna's story is a warning. About power, about love, about how easily one woman's grief can be turned into a weapon against her. The portraits show her with downcast eyes, draped in black, but paint cannot capture what she carried. Not just the coffin of Philip the Handsome, but the unbearable weight of a love that destroyed her, and a family that betrayed her. Because sometimes the most dangerous prison isn't built of stone, but of your own heart. If this story disturbed you, subscribe. History is stranger, darker, and more twisted than you were ever taught in school.